Dermatoglyphia. In 2007, a Swiss woman was held for hours at the US border because she simply had no fingerprints to scan into the biometric system. It wasn't a scar, a burn, or any kind of mutilation. The skin on her fingertips was perfectly smooth, like porcelain. The condition is called dermatoglyphia, and only 5 extended families in the entire world are born with it, all carrying a mutation in the SMARCAD1 gene, identified in 2011 by Israeli dermatologist Eli Sprecher. That gene controls the formation of the skin ridges on fingers, palms, and soles between the 10th and 24th weeks of fetal development. When the faulty version kicks in, the baby's skin shows up completely blank, and the number of sweat glands on the hands also drops. The Swiss woman's case became famous because federal agents had no protocol in place. The FBI database only accounted for cases of mutilation, never congenital absence. It took hours of phone calls, improvised paperwork, and supervisors woken up in the middle of the night before she was finally cleared to enter the country. The nickname immigration delay disease started circulating at medical conferences after that incident. Today, specialized hospitals issue official stamped letters so carriers can cross borders without automatically becoming suspects at every checkpoint on the planet. Hyperthymesia. American Jill Price can recall, with 98% accuracy, what she did on any given day of her life since the age of 14, and she describes her own mind as a split-screen TV where the past plays on its own in an endless loop she can't shut off. Fewer than 100 people in the entire world have this condition, called hyperthymesia, or highly superior autobiographical memory. For comparison, the average human brain retains between 8 and 11 days a year in vivid detail. The rest fades into a blur or disappears entirely. The syndrome was identified in 2006 by American neurobiologist James McGaugh at the University of California, Irvine, after Price mailed him a letter describing involuntary memories that never stopped. MR is revealed that these people have enlarged hippocampus and precuneus circuits, plus abnormal activation in the caudate nucleus, the same region affected in people with obsessive-compulsive disorder. Not by coincidence, most carriers show exaggerated germ phobia, compulsive organizing habits, and a severe inability to move past grief. Price developed chronic depression because childhood humiliations, teenage fights, and every loss come back every single day with the same intensity as the day they happened. She has called her own brain a curse in interviews, and she says that forgetting for the rest of humanity is a gift nobody appreciates. Brunner syndrome. In 2009, an Italian court reduced the sentence of a confessed murderer by 1 full year after DNA tests detected in him a defective version of the so-called warrior gene. The judges accepted that the mutation directly affected the defendant's impulse control. Brunner syndrome, the condition behind that allele, exists in only 4 documented families worldwide. It was discovered in 1993 by Dutch geneticist Han Brunner while investigating a clan in the city of Nijmegen where 14 men, across 5 generations, repeated the exact same pattern: arson, attempted rape, exhibitionism, and impulsive violence. They all shared a mutation on the X chromosome that switched off the MAOA gene, responsible for producing an enzyme that breaks down serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline in the brain. Without that enzyme working, the prefrontal cortex drowns in accumulated neurotransmitters, and the brake that holds aggression in check simply stops existing. The best-known variants, named R45W and E446K, reduce enzyme activity by up to 6,000 times. The press quickly adopted the warrior gene nickname, and ever since, defense attorneys in several countries have tried to use genetic test results to argue for reduced culpability in court. The 2009 case set a dangerous precedent. For the first time in Europe, DNA was formally admitted as a mitigating factor in a courtroom. Marshall-Smith syndrome. Doctors on duty in maternity wards have come across X-rays of 30-day-old babies showing fully fused wrist bones, as if the child had the skeletal age of a 5-year-old inside a newborn's body. About 65 people in the entire world live with this contradiction, known as Marshall-Smith syndrome. The skeleton ages at an accelerated pace, while muscle, lung, and fat tissue stay immature, frozen at the fetal stage. The cause lies in mutations in the NFIX gene located on chromosome 19, which paralyze the coordination between the cells that build bone and the cells that build cartilage. The result is disordered ossification, in which parts of the skeleton harden before they should. At the same time, the child's overall growth stalls. They don't gain weight, they don't gain mass, and they struggle severely to breathe because the upper airways stay too narrow for the fragile body. The syndrome was described in 1971 by pediatricians Richard Marshall and David Smith, and the radiological paradox became so striking in the medical literature that it appears in textbooks as a classic example of maturation mismatch. Most patients die before reaching 24 months from respiratory collapse. The longest documented case lived to 30. It's a child with the skeleton of an adult, trapped in a body that never learns how to grow. Wiedemann-Rautenstrauch syndrome. Parents leaving the maternity ward with a baby who has this syndrome often hear comments like, "What a beautiful little grandson," because the newborn looks like a 90-year-old man. Bald head, prominent veins pulsing under a translucent scalp, a receded jaw, already erupted teeth, wrinkled skin, and no body fat at all, except for two paradoxical pads built up above the buttocks and along the flanks, a hallmark sign that confuses even seasoned dermatologists. The condition, also called neonatal progeria, has roughly 45 cases on record in the global medical literature since 1977. It's caused by mutations in the POLR3A gene, which directs the production of an enzyme essential for protein synthesis in specific tissues, the myelin that coats nerves, the subcutaneous fat, and the elastic fibers that hold the skin together. Without that enzyme working properly, aging begins inside the womb, and the baby is born already looking like someone who has lived a century. The syndrome is named after pediatricians Hans Rudolf Wiedemann and Thomas Rautenstrauch, who described the first cases in Germany. Most patients don't make it through the first year of life, and those who survive show severe neurological delays. In case reports, doctors describe the awkward silence that forms when a mother pulls back the blanket to show her child to an unsuspecting visitor. Field's disease. There are 3 people on the entire planet with the rarest disease ever catalogued by medicine. Identical Welsh twins Catherine and Kirsty Fields from the town of Llanelli in Wales, and a third patient identified more recently. The statistical probability comes out to 1 case for every 7.5 billion people on Earth. It all began in 1998 when the twins were only 4 years old and started losing control of their leg movements. Doctors at Great Ormond Street Hospital in London ran decades of genetic tests without finding a match to any known muscular dystrophy or spinal muscular atrophy. The disease, named after the patients themselves, attacks the nerves that drive movement, and the molecular mechanism remains a complete mystery to this day. By age 14, Catherine and Kirsty had lost their speech entirely. Today, they live in motorized wheelchairs and communicate exclusively through electronic voice synthesizers, picking letters with small head movements. Each twin endures, on average, 100 painful muscle spasms a day, which flare up with strong emotions, from laughter to anger. The cruelest part is that the intellect, personality, and memory of both are completely intact. They are conscious witnesses to their own progressive deterioration, trapped in bodies that fail piece by piece while their minds stay whole. Ribose 5-phosphate isomerase deficiency. In 1999, a Dutch doctor looked at the scan of a 15-year-old boy and spotted in his brain 2 chemical signals that no scientist had ever seen before in a human being. The patient had been under investigation since infancy, with developmental delay, epileptic seizures by age 4, and a progressive loss of balance, speech, and vision. For 15 years, he had been a medical case without a name. Neuropediatrician Mario van der Knop of the Vrije Universiteit Medical Center in Amsterdam identified in him what would become the rarest disease in all of humanity, officially classified that way by the American Journal of Human Genetics. It earned a technical name, ribose 5-phosphate isomerase deficiency, or RPID, and to this day only 4 patients in the entire world have been diagnosed between 1984 and 2019. The Dutch boy, an Indian man identified in 2017, an American child diagnosed in New Jersey in 2018, and a 4th case recorded in 2019. The Journal of Molecular Medicine published a landmark article on the condition in 2010 with a title that, without irony, summed it all up: the difference between rare and exceptionally rare. The strangest detail: inside patient Zero's own body, some cells function almost normally while others are completely broken. He is, literally, a mosaic of his own disease. With not enough human subjects on the planet to study the case, researchers had to engineer a version of the disease in genetically modified yeast, kuru. In the 1950s, women and children of the 4 people, in the eastern highlands of Papua New Guinea, began dying laughing, in an involuntary, uncontrollable laughter that foreign journalists nicknamed laughing death. The disease is called kuru, and it was the first transmissible spongiform encephalopathy ever identified by science. At the peak of the epidemic, kuru was killing between 1% and 2% of the entire 4 population each year. Women and children died 9 times more often than men, and the reason came down to a specific funeral ritual. When a tribe member died, the relative's brain was reserved for the women and the children, while the men ate only the muscle tissue. The agent is the prion, a misfolded protein that, on contact with healthy proteins in the brain, forces them to adopt the same twisted shape, spreading the damage in a cascade. The result is a cerebellar cortex riddled with microscopic holes, looking literally like Swiss cheese in autopsies. The window between eating contaminated tissue and falling ill can stretch beyond 50 years. The last case was recorded in 2005, after the ritual was abandoned back in the 1960s. American physician Carlton Gajdusek unraveled the entire mechanism and won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1976, founding the field of prion diseases, which would later explain mad cow disease and Creutzfeldt-Jakob.